Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. How's everybody doing today? Hopefully everybody is doing well. In today's video, guys, we're doing a video that was kind of just thrown together last minute because the topic of this video I didn't actually find out till today, and the topic that we're doing is I found out that today is Stanley Kubrick's birthday. Now, Stanley Kubrick passed away back in the late 90s and has not been with us for a very, very, very long time, but he is a very iconic, just masterful, brilliant director. And he's one of my all-time favorites. He's in my top 5 for sure. He's probably my favorite American director. And I realized, you know what? I don't think I've ever done like a ranking of his films. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to rank Stanley Kubrick's films. Now, I am not going to rank every single one. I mean, we're not going to be doing like his documentary he did or his little short films. We're basically just going to rank the ones from Fear and Desire to Eyes Wide Shut. And I think it's like 13 films, something like that. And that's all we're going to be ranking. This is probably kind of a controversial type video. I mean, as far as like ranking, I mean, he has so many good movies and everybody's going to have their opinion. I mean, I'm a fan. I'm a huge fan of Stanley Kubrick. He's one of my all-time favorite directors for a reason. So every movie on this list, I'm pretty much a fan of. So, I mean, it's kind of a hard list to do. So this is only my opinion. So don't tear me apart in the comments if you don't agree with my list. This is just my opinion of the ones that, this is kind of where they just fall, the ones that I kind of enjoy the most. But I'll be honest with you, I like them all because Stanley Kubrick is outstanding. So I am a fan of every single one of these films. Well, most of these films. Just some of them I like a lot better than others. So this is just my personal opinion. So yeah, with that being said, guys, let's delve right in. And first up, and I don't have everything on like a actual physical copy. Most of them I do, but some of them I just have in this little like Stanley Kubrick box set that doesn't have individual cases. It's just the discs in holders. So for those films that I don't actually have, I'll just put up here, I'll just put the picture of the poster art, which is what I'm gonna have to do for this first film because I do not own this film, although it does have a physical media release, and that is Fear and Desire. Now, Fear and Desire is not really a bad film by any means. I mean, it definitely has its flaws compared to some of the stuff that Kubrick does later on in his career. But the thing about this film that's not too bad, the thing about this film that's kind of cool, is you do see some very early experimental type work as far as like camera angles and stuff like that. And so that kind of stuff you can enjoy, but overall as a movie, it is definitely not one of his best, which is why it's falling in last spot on this list. So next up, guys, is another one I don't actually own, and I'm going to be honest with you, this film, I don't really even consider a Stanley Kubrick film, and that's the film Spartacus. Now, Spartacus is not a bad film by any means. I mean, I enjoy it, but Kubrick came in, and he wasn't the original director. He came in like halfway through it, I think. So he only directed like half of it. He didn't have final cut. I mean, there was just a lot of studio interference, a lot of interference from Kirk Douglas, and Kubrick really just didn't get a chance to do what he wanted to do. So, I mean, you watch Spartacus, there is nothing in that movie that has any trademarks or reminds me really anything of a Stanley Kubrick film. And if they are in there, they're few and far between, and yeah, there's just not a whole lot in there. So this movie, honestly, I've never really considered to be a true Stanley Kubrick film, even though he is credited as the director. But for all those reasons, that's why it falls at the number 12 spot on this list. The first one, yeah, so I think it's 13 films, so this was number 12. All right, guys, coming in at the number 11 spot is a film that I do actually own, and I believe this is a 4K release. Yeah, I think this is actually a 4K release from Kino Lorber, and that is Stanley Kubrick's Killer's Kiss. I enjoy this film quite a bit. This was one of the first films where you really kind of start to see a little bit of some of the trademarks type like camera angles or music or just overall cinematography style that becomes quite popular and very noticeable in a lot of his later films. Yeah, this film is really good. I do enjoy it for a very early film. It's short. It's only 67 minutes, which is far different from a lot of his later films, which push, you know, the 2.5 hour, even into 3 hour marks later on in his career. But yeah, this film is definitely worth your time. If you ever get a chance, definitely check it out. You can get it on 4K. You can probably find it pretty cheap just on DVD or Blu-ray. But yeah, this falls at number 12 on the list, and this is definitely worth your time. It's a fun little early Kubrick film, Killer's Kiss. All right, guys, coming in at the number 10 spot, we have a film that was highly controversial when it came out, just like a lot of Kubrick films. But that's the film Lolita. I enjoyed this film quite a bit, actually. I thought it was outstanding performances by everybody, especially Peter Sellers. He was just a very, very creepy, just sleazy kind of guy. He did a great job. This is a movie, too, that you kind of start to see some of the cinematography and the use of music that Kubrick tends to do later on in his career. So yeah, movie is worth your time. It is a little bit on the disturbing side. It has to do with, underage sex, I guess, to say it the least. But it is still done very well. It's done. It's a well done film, and it's definitely worth your time. So yeah, coming at the number 10 spot is Lolita. All right, guys, coming in at the number 9 spot is a movie that has a Criterion release, but desperately needs a 4K release. I think this film would look stunning in 4K, and that is Barry Lyndon. This is another one of those movies that really pushes the time span we were talking about. Yeah, 185 minutes. But this is definitely an epic film. It's beautifully shot. The cinematography is just outstanding in this. The music, the wide angle lenses. This film is basically like looking at like an old it's basically like looking at like a painting. It's a painting brought to life. It is beautifully shot. The acting performances are really good. It's a film it's sad, it's epic, it's even a little bit funny at times. It drags on a little bit though. It is a little bit long, but it is definitely an interesting story. If you can handle the 185-minute runtime, it's definitely worth your time. So yeah, coming in at the number 9 spot is Barry Lyndon. Coming in at the number 8 spot is a film that I actually have on 4K. I think it's 4K. It's on 4K, which I haven't even opened or watched in 4K, although I've seen this movie multiple times. Another one that came from Kino Lorber, and that is The Killing. This movie is a lot of fun. It's about robbing of a racetrack, like a horse racetrack, that just does not go well. It does not go well. This is definitely one of the more like just fun, rewatchable films. This is a film that's not highly controversial. I mean, a lot of Kubrick stuff later on is very controversial, but this is definitely one of those films that is just a very interesting story. I believe it's the first time he delves into like narration type stuff in his films. Don't quote me on that, but I think it is. But this is just a fun film. It is definitely has a wonderful cast, a great performance by Sterling Hayden, and really everybody. And yeah, it is definitely worth your time. And like I said, it's probably one of the most like rewatchable movies on this list. It's a lot of fun. Definitely check out The Killing, coming in at the number 8 spot. Is that where I'm at? Yes. The number 8 spot is The Killing. Coming in at the number 7 spot is another film that definitely needs a 4K upgrade, because I think this movie would look stunning in 4K. And this was actually Stanley Kubrick's last film, and that is Eyes Wide Shut. I'm gonna be honest with you, I wasn't a huge fan when I first saw Eyes Wide Shut. I really hadn't delved too much into Stanley Kubrick yet at that time. So the first time I saw it, I thought it was haunting and weird and just uncomfortable, and which it is, all of that is, but I didn't really know Kubrick at all. So kind of going into that movie, not being too familiar with Kubrick or his style or this or that, it really just kind of left. It was just kind of off-putting. I really just was like, I don't think so. And then once I started studying film more, and I'd seen pretty much every other Kubrick film, I was like, I'm going to go back and rewatch Eyes Wide Shut. And I'm glad that I did give it another shot because this movie is awesome. I love Eyes Wide Shut. I know that amongst Kubrick fans, there's kind of mixed reviews. Just people in general kind of mixed reviews. But the more I watch this movie, the more and more I like it. It's beautifully shot. It's got great music. It takes place at Christmas time, so there's the Christmas lights. Look fantastic, especially on the wide-angle lenses he uses, and that's why I think this movie definitely could use a 4K upgrade. It would look fantastic, great performances. It is a little out there. It's one of the more out there films on this list, but it is a very cool, interesting kind of just mystery and dealing with sexuality and just there's so many things going on, but definitely check it out. It is a very, very cool film. So yeah, Eyes Wide Shut is coming in at number 7. Coming in at the number 6 spot, I would say is probably Stanley Kubrick's most controversial film of all time. And that is A Clockwork Orange. This is definitely a film that has probably some of the least rewatchable value. Although I have seen this film multiple times just because it's so beautifully shot. It's got Beethoven's music in it, which is fantastic. The dialogue is great. The acting is great. But it's a hard film to stomach. It really is. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not for everybody. It's dealing with some pretty nasty dudes. Like they're not very nice people, and so yeah, it's hard to stomach. It's hard to take in. But I mean, if you can handle it, this is a great film. It is a beautifully shot film. Kubrick does an outstanding job with this, and it was one of my top favorites for a long time. And then over the course of the years, my list has kind of changed a little bit. This was in like the top, I think this was in like the 2nd spot for a long time. And it kind of moved up the list over the years, but it still does not mean it's not a fantastic film and well worth your time. So yeah, coming in at the number 6 spot is A Clockwork Orange. All right, guys, we have made it to the top 5. And coming in at the number 5 spot is a film that I think most people, when they do their Kubrick list, would probably not put this in the top 5. But I did, and that is Kirk Douglas and Paths of Glory. This movie is fantastic. This is a great war film. I think this is a very overlooked film. As far as war type stuff for Stanley Kubrick, I know this film gets definitely overlooked by his other film, Full Metal Jacket. But this film, people really need to see. It is a fantastic story. This is one of the first times you really start to see the tracking shots that Kubrick becomes notorious for using later on in his career. Fantastic performances. It's heartbreaking. It's sad. It's exciting. It's just got great dialogue. This is definitely a war movie that people sleep on and just gets overlooked by much other bigger, more epic type war films. But this is definitely one not to sleep on. This, in my opinion, is one of Kubrick's best, man. Paths of Glory is outstanding. If you have never seen it and you're interested in seeing some really good early Kubrick, check out Paths of Glory, and that's why it's coming in at the number 5 spot and is in my top 5 Kubrick films. Coming in at the number 4 spot is actually a movie that has a 4K release, and I realized when I was collecting these movies that I don't even own it on 4K, which is pathetic. So this is going to have to be one of the next movies that I watch because I'm sure, or pick up, because I'm sure it looks fantastic in 4K. And that is the film I just talked about just a minute ago, and that is Full Metal Jacket. Delving back into the war type genre. This movie is outstanding. This movie came out after a lot of other directors did their Vietnam War movie. I mean, you had already had Platoon out at this point. I think Born on the 4th of July. I think Hamburger Hill was Vietnam. Whole bunch of Vietnam films had already come out. And then Kubrick comes out with Full Metal Jacket and just blows everybody's hair back. This movie is outstanding with some great performances. A killer, very creepy, haunting soundtrack, some very creepy, haunting scenes. A lot of the dialogue from the drill instructor, I forgot what his name is in real life, who I think is now passed away. He is absolutely hysterical, but this movie deals with some pretty serious stuff, man. I mean, it gets into the nitty gritty. It's of war and boot camp, and it's a hardcore war film, man. But it is definitely one that is well worth your time. Not even just as a Kubrick film, just as a war film in general. It is outstanding. And that's why it is number 4 and is also in my top 5 favorite Kubrick films of all time. All right, guys, we are on to number 3. And I realized when I'm looking at some of my other ones, and I was talking about how The Killing probably had the most rewatchable value. That's somewhat true, but not really, because I'm realizing there's some other ones on this list that aren't overly controversial and actually are quite, well, they are kind of controversial, but definitely have a rewatch appeal. And that is one of these. That is this next movie here coming in at number 3. Kubrick delves into the horror genre, and that is The Shining. Even well before I really even knew who Kubrick was, I'd seen The Shining probably a couple of times. So this movie has just struck a chord with me. I mean, I've always been a huge fan of it. Not only do I think it's one of the greatest Kubrick films of all time, I think it's one of the greatest horror films of all time. This is a spooky movie. This is a great one to throw in if there's like a blizzard outside. You know, it's cold out. You can't really go anywhere. You're kind of snowed in. Sit down and do a double feature. Watch this and The Thing. I mean, that'd be a great double feature if you're ever snowed in sometime. But yeah, this film makes you feel claustrophobic. It's creepy. It's haunting. It's just, the cinematography is fantastic. It's just, everything about this film is awesome, and it is a great horror film. I wish Kubrick would have delved more into horror when he was alive. I would have loved to have seen another horror film from Kubrick, but I'm lucky that we have this one to watch over and over again, because it is well worth your time, which is why it's coming in at number 3 and is in my top 5 favorite Kubrick films of all time. All right, guys, we're down to the last 2. Coming in at number 2 is a film that I didn't see till well after I kind of started exploring into Kubrick. A buddy of mine showed me this. Actually, for a long time, I guess I didn't even realize that this film was done by Kubrick. I'd heard of it, didn't really know what it was about, and my buddy showed it to me, and I thought it was one of the funniest movies I had ever seen. I still, to this day, think this movie is absolutely hysterical, and that is Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. You want to talk about outstanding performances. You got George C. Scott, who's outstanding, and then of course you have Peter Sellers playing, I think it's like 3 or 4 different characters, who is just brilliant in this. Oh my gosh, he just shines in this. This is his crowning moment, in my opinion. I mean, I know he did multiple different characters and multiple different movies with different directors and stuff, but man, this movie is outstanding. It's funny, it's haunting, it's a little creepy. It's just this movie has it all, and it is so much fun, and it is so funny. It is so funny. One of my favorite lines in here is when 2 people are fighting and the president comes up and he's like, "Hey, you can't fight in here. This is the war room." Still to this day, I think that is one of the funniest lines of all time. If you've never seen Dr. Strangelove, do yourself a favor. This is an outstanding film, an outstanding Kubrick film, and which is why it's number 2, and also it is in my top 5 favorite Kubrick films of all time. Coming in at number 2 is Dr. Strangelove. All right, guys, we are down to the last one, and if you've watched the whole video, it really only leaves one film left, and I'm pretty sure you can figure out what it is. And of course, that is 2001: A Space Odyssey, which looks fantastic in 4K, by the way. This movie, I love this movie so much. I remember the first time I saw it, it just blew my mind. I love the camera work, the cinematography, the music, the wide-angle lenses, the subject matter. And the thing that's so great about this film is this is one of the first films by Kubrick that came out where you kind of got all of those Kubrick signature type characteristics all put into one film that he uses throughout the rest of his career. You get it has the famous tracking shots, the wide angle lenses, the usage of music, just everything that's represented in here and represented in all those other Kubrick films that make his films so noticeably known, is all really done and put together for the first time in this film. I also find the subject matter to be one of the more interesting. I mean, everything he did, all of his subject matter was always interesting, but man versus machine type stuff, I just thought this was a fantastic subject matter. I found the subject matter to be just very, very fascinating, and just overall, just a great film. This is another one, though, it's got a long runtime. Not as long as Barry Lyndon, but 149 minutes, so it's definitely takes a little bit of your time, but it is well worth your time, which is why this film is coming in at number 1 and in my top 5 favorite Kubrick films of all time. Coming in at number 1 is 2001: A Space Odyssey. All right, guys, that's all I got for you today. That's my list. That's my Stanley Kubrick list. But like I said, it's hard to do a list like that when you're dealing with a director that's so masterful and just awesome like Stanley Kubrick. It's hard to really do a list. Every one of the films on the list are very good. Just some I like a little bit better than others. But yeah, guys, that's my list. That's all I got for you today. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up. Let's know if you guys like what I'm doing. Like, share, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Let me know in the comments below. Do you agree with my list? Do you not agree with my list? Are you a Kubrick fan? What's your list? Let's continue the conversation in the comments below, guys. Thank you so much for watching. You're amazing as always. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care. Bye.